Could you tell me who you live with and how long you've lived here, please?
Okay. I live with my 10-year-old son. I live with him sort of half of the time. He's with his dad for half the time, with me half the time. And we have lived here since November of last year.
Okay. And where did you live before?
Very locally to here, along the same stretch of main road. So it was very ideal being able to live here because I was living with family before this due to not being able to afford anything else.
Is that how you found out about the development?
Yes, there's another development close by, and I had been keeping an eye out for part buy, part rent houses in that, and then some I think came up in the development here, but I wasn't at a stage then where I could move, and then I was very much in a stage where I needed to move because I was living in my dead mother's house. Then I moved in with my brother, and he said I could stay with him as long as it took, but this is quite an expensive area to buy, but I didn't want to really move out of it if I could, so getting a part buy, part rent place was really my only hope of being able to live where I wanted to live. And so I kept an eye out, and then eventually this release of places came up. I think there were sort of maybe 4 2-beds and 2 3-beds, I can't quite remember at the time, and I put my name down, and it was a bit of a, not a fight, because my situation was quite unique. It took a lot of toing and froing to get the place, but eventually I did, because I did sort of tickle the boxes for that.
Did you have an option to which of the two?
Yes, we could express a preference, and this was my preference, for no particular reason other than the one next door seemed to be at the end. Well, obviously it goes into the next part of the development after that, so it's not at the end, but that was really my only reason. I just didn't want to be at the end.
And when you picked this house, was it still under construction?
Very much so. Because I lived nearby, we could come and look and see how it was getting on. We couldn't get right up to it because it was part of the building site, obviously, but the houses that back onto this, they were released for people to move into, so we could effectively get to the end of the garden and have a look over the fence. And then it was completed, so in terms of timeline, we knew they were being available. I exchanged in November with a view to moving in April. That was then moved to June. Then it was kind of indefinitely when are we going to move because of issues with the utilities, and there's a way leave agreement. I've learnt a lot about this. So the utilities need a way leave agreement, and from my limited understanding, all the utilities for the rest of this part of development come from that way, but because we were the last 2 houses, it came from that way, and it just hadn't been signed off. And so we then, from having exchanged in sort of the November, or October, I don't know, it was the end of 2022, we didn't then complete until November of 23. So that was, and I was staying with family during that time. And we could see that the house itself was built. It was just the signing of this bit that needed to be done. But we got there in the end.
Yeah, the last little bit.
Yeah.
And when you moved in, were there things that still needed to be completed, or it was?
It was absolutely all done. The Housing Association had done their own, whatever it's called, when you go around a new build to see what's wrong with it. But I sort of had a friend just have a look at things, and literally the only things was we couldn't get any loft. Turns out that was user error, it's just a weird loft hatch, and the oven wasn't screwed in, so that if you went like that you could pull the oven out. But I brought that to the Housing Association, and then the builders sent somebody round to screw that in. housing association sent round someone to show me how to open the loft, and so that's literally all there was.
And the loft, is it just for storage, or it could potentially be extended?
I think it would be just for storage, because this house, it doesn't go up into a point on top, it sort of goes into one of those, and it's not really tall enough, I think. But my brother's going to board it out, so we'll have, I mean, it's good for storage, this house, anyway, so.
Okay, perfect. Coming back to kind of what a what a day-to-day looks like for you and your son, what type of activities do you do at home together?
All sorts. We do cooking together, and recently, in fact just this last week, Rowan's been getting into making himself smoothies, and he likes to do that on his own, so I'm usually banished while he does that. We sometimes watch telly in here together, play board games in here together. Quite often he'll be playing his computer games, or watching YouTube, which is just mostly really annoying stuff. So sometimes I'm not in here. Sometimes I'll be doing my own thing, like reading a book while he's doing that, or I'll go upstairs to my room. And sometimes we flip that, as if he really wants to watch YouTube and I want to watch something on the big telly, then he'll go up there. But that's sort of the activities we do in here. Then I work from home some of the time, if that is on a Rowan's school day, so it's not the holidays. I actually tend to work from home in his room because he's got a desk, and it's less distracting as well. So that happens sort of once a week at least, if not more. Obviously breakfast time, getting ready, bath times as well is a big thing. Again, where he's getting older, that happens, but he quite likes to chat, so quite often I'll sometimes be sat outside having a chat, or on the loo, so to speak, to close the lid and just sit down and have a talk with him. Because as I said, I have him sort of every other week. On the Friday, and sometimes the Saturday as well, we have a sleepover, so he'll come in my room and we'll watch some telly together. And it was Mother's Day last week, so yeah, we did some of that as well. But we also go out and about and do stuff.
Okay, perfect. Did your routine change a lot since you moved here?
So much. I was saying it to a colleague this week. It's amazing how easy life is now compared to how it was. I always knew things would be better once I had my own place. I did not appreciate how hard things were before, because at my brother's house we didn't have our own space. He's a 10-year-old boy, so I mean, as you've seen, there's a lot of stuff about. There's like my clothes that are drying as well and things like that. Everything was sort of contained in one room at my brother's. I couldn't relax of an evening. It was just kind of getting through. Like Rowan would go to bed. We were sharing a room as well, so I couldn't go to bed and read because he'd have to go to sleep, or I couldn't go to bed and watch telly because he'd have to sleep. There wasn't a bath there was just a shower, and it's just nice to have a bath, simply put, particularly because like Rowan's had child things and like verrucas and stuff, soaking your foot, so I was there like with a bowl of water and a foot bath, like he's at a spa. Or an old woman soaking her feet, for things like that. And it was just, it wasn't, but since moving here, it is so different. We do have sort of more of a routine, and there's things that we can do. Like last week we went to the local craft shop, and Rowan was like, can we get some clay to make some stuff? Yes, we can, because we can make a mess, and then leave stuff out to dry. It's just, I know it sort of sounds very small stuff, but you don't realise that not having that is massive. And things like, on the weeks that I'm with Rowan, I can leave the washing up till the next day if I need to. I don't have to, because at my brother's again, it was make sure everything's clear. And there wasn't any of my stuff. A lot of my stuff was in storage. And so it's just like, oh, space to do things. And the house is still drying out where it's a new build, but it's like, be able to have things how I like them. And it's honestly, I knew it'd be good having this own place, but I did not appreciate how important it's been for me.
That's great. That's great. Are there things that you want to change once it's dried out and everything?
Yes. I mean, I've never decorated a place before, and really this is a blank canvas. So I've been talking to my nieces and things and some friends and asking what they think, asking Rowan what he thinks, because he's very opinionated on what things go together. So any colour schemes that I've got at the moment, like there's yellow in this room, we've got like yellowy accents, that's all him. But I've decided I'm going to start with the downstairs toilet just because it's the smallest room. And if I decide that I'm not cut out for this, it's the smallest room and probably the least used. So, but yeah, so I want to put my own stamp on it. And Rowan already is a bit in his room. But again, it's sort of a learning curve to try and find out, what I like, because it's not something. The garden as well is really important. I've just joined hasn't been delivered yet, but a gardening subscription box where they just send all the stuff to grow like 3 produce. You get 3 different types of produce a month, and they send you all the stuff, so I don't have to worry about where I'm keeping soil and things like that. And they can all be grown on patios or windowsills or things, and that will give me something to do in the evening, and then when the weather becomes nicer, maybe like a seating area out there as well.
Oh yeah, that's going to be nice. Was a garden kind of an essential criteria for you?
No, I would have bought a flat if one came available in the right place. So it was location first, type of property second. But I would have, if I hadn't had even a balcony, that would have been difficult, because I like birds, I like plants. I'm not like an avid gardener, but I do like to grow things, particularly things I can eat. And just to be able to just go outside, but not have to go away from home.
And other than kind of the 2-bedroom and location, were there any other criteria you had in mind to select?
No. As I said, location was the main runner, because after my marriage ended, I moved back to West End. West End is where I grew up. And Rowan had started his schooling here. And really, I couldn't have done any better location-wise, because I kind of wanted to live where I was living before, but in a house that I could. The fact it's a new build, that's important to me. If it was fairly new build, that would also have been fine if it was a resale. But something that I can maintain and keep on top of. I couldn't manage a doer-upper, so to speak.
When you first moved in, is there something that kind of took you by surprise, or something that you wish you would have known about this place?
Not necessarily. It's quite cosmetic in a way, but it's things like with the windows, there's not a bar to put in just your own curtain rails, so you have to go straight into the. So that's why I haven't got any curtains down here, because I just focused on the upstairs for now. There's storage in the kitchen. It's like a lot of space where there could be some more storage, and I will have to put some more up there, because isn't sort of huge amounts. I mean, it came with a fridge, wonderful. It came with fridge and oven, space for washing machine, which I then bought. That was all brilliant. There, as I said, the storage is good here. I was impressed with that. So it took me by surprise, but in a positive sort of way. Sort of knowing where, sounds a bit silly, but where the plug points are in the rooms and stuff as well. Because when I first moved in, this room itself was round the other way, because it seems very much that that's where it should be set up for the TV and everything to be. But actually, then the windows there, your kind of sat down area is also a thoroughfare through to that. And I wanted to have an area in this room where we could have a seating area and a dining, doing other stuff area, rather than just having it all as one massive room. Because a dining place was also important to me, a place where we can sit up to the table and have dinner. Have other people around for dinner as well. So that was important. Going upstairs to the bedroom. Again, there's good storage. The understairs cupboard is massive. There's an airing cupboard upstairs that's got good storage. We've also got a loft. It needs to be boarded out, but now I can get in it. That's something easier. But no sort of really particularly unpleasant surprises, but there's sort of little things, a bit like where the plug points are, and the fact of like, how are we supposed to set this up?
Do you think then your home offers you that flexibility to?
It does, but it's things like when I moved in, as I said, everything was set up over there. So the internet's over there now because it came already pre-wired, and that's annoying because, and without getting a guy over, I can't just unplug it and plug it in over here because the big connection thing for the broadband is over there. But yeah, I mean it's pretty flexible. We could have. So this room is big enough for me to have that little separate area. I think if this room was any smaller, it would be a struggle for that. There's also like a hall, and I'm still working out what that space is used for, because it feels that it should be, yes, it's the place you go through to get places, but what else goes there? Because I've got a little entrance area, but again, it's a lot of nice space, and how to use that is a bit funny. The kitchen, there is something that annoys me about the kitchen actually. It can be a lonely room. Rowan's in here and I'm in there. If he talks to me, a number of times I'm like, come in here if you need to talk to me. And then inevitably he doesn't, and I end up having to come out. But also, the way the door opens in the kitchen, it's not, if you've got the door open, you can't get to the fridge. So you sort of have to come in and then close the door and then do that, which is a little bit annoying, really. Similarly, if there are two of you in the kitchen, inevitably one of you ends up behind the door, which can be, if you're both in there cooking, fine, you can shut the door and you're both in the kitchen. But if there's sort of a lot of going on in and out, like at Christmas, I had my partner and his daughter and her boyfriend over, and I mean, it was quite a nice feeling, but we were literally all climbing over each other to get the food and go in and out. So yeah, that is something I think, I don't know how else it could be, but it's sort of like, that's the thing that I probably think about most. I'm like, that's annoying.
Would you prefer it to be open plan ideally?
Yes.
Is that something you would like?
Yeah, I mean, I think, because I was thinking about this, so if I sort of had a magic, so if I had this house and I could do really what I wanted with it, if there was some way for there to be some kind of open plan or even like double doors between the dining area and kitchen, and even losing the downstairs loo, I would do that. Because the occasions when both toilets are going to be in use are going to be very rare indeed, even if we've got people over.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if I think I've only lived in one other house that's had 2 loos, and I've been just fine.
What are some things that you like about your home?
The light, the rooms are all light. The upstairs rooms have 2 windows each, and that's lovely. Particularly as the room I was in at my brother's was dark and dingy and horrible. So I can feel whichever room I'm in, apart from the bathrooms, but you don't necessarily need light in the bathrooms. Don't want people to look in. It's whichever room I'm in, it feels airy because of that light. The rooms are also a really good size. So with Rowan growing up, because this is my family, it's not going to get bigger anymore. Yes, I've got a partner, but I don't particularly I'm quite happy having my own place. So there's no plans for him to move in, and even if he did, his daughter's nearly adult, and that would be all in sync with that. But like Rowan's room, there's space for him to grow in it. So he's got a desk, he's got his bed, but there's a little bit more space. There's enough space so that you can put another bed down there if he has a friend over or something. And there's enough wall space so that if he plays guitar or does anything like that. Same with down here, we've got an electric piano set up over there. So there's space for that. And also upstairs in my room, I'm hoping eventually is to get my sewing machine set up there, so there's hobbies that I can have and leave out without having to put things away all the time. I really love that. And kitchen, whilst the door is annoying, it's lovely having workspace and space to do things. I do like feeding people, because that's one of the first things that I've got back into since, is the fact that actually I can it doesn't matter even if I'm only feeding myself. I can muck around in the kitchen, do some cooking. If it goes well, I can freeze bits or just offload them to people at work. That's nice. My neighbour's nice as well. We don't get any real noise problems or anything like that. And the garden's lovely. It's a good size and a blank slate for me to do whatever I want with it. And the bathroom as well. Having a bath is lovely.
And in terms of heating, because you haven't been here in summer, but at least in winter,
It's
was that
amazing.
Like?
It's probably the most boring talked about subject at work is my heating, because this is a warm house. I quite often put the heating on for a bit of a blast just to get the clothes on the air are sort of drying a bit, but it's only when it's been really, really cold I've had to have the heating on. It stays pretty warm by itself. The houses I've lived in before this, my brother's and my mum's old house, they were old houses and had old doors, double glazing, and I hadn't appreciated how much I miss new insulation and things. It's because particularly with all the prices going up, I wasn't paying for my bills when all of that, and you're seeing it in the news thinking, oh God, what am I going to walk into? And I've got smart meters. This house came with smart meters, so I don't have to keep worrying about giving my meter readings, although I still sometimes do. It's just out of caution. But I'm paying an affordable amount, and it seems that I'm paying too much. I'll keep on paying this amount until I've been here a full year, so I can see what's actually used. But that is absolutely so lovely. Being warm and not just needing to wear slippers and stuff all the time. And we've got a heated towel rail upstairs in the bathroom, and that's very nice as well. Sometimes, again, I'll put the heating on just for the heated towel rail, because it's nice to have a warm towel after baths.
Okay. And
electric as well, off the same back as that. Particularly with the thing that, because I've got solar panels on the roof, they're not the ones that store up a battery, but if you use electric when it's sunny, some bit will come from that, as well as the stuff you pay for. And I think that's helping a lot with my electric bills as well. I'm paying less than what I thought I would be paying. So
that's going to be great in summer.
yeah.
What does housing quality mean for you? What criteria comes to mind?
Somewhere secure, which is not something I've mentioned so far, but it is because I've had a lot of turbulence in where I've been living, my living situation and things that were prior to that. Having somewhere that feels safe, so like with the lockable windows, the garden. I mean, I suppose actually, as we're talking about design and things, I've got a glass door that sort of goes into my garage area. Bit weird. It's a bit weird. I mean, it's more secure than a wooden fence door, but also you can see through it. So that's... But again, I can lock that, and it's the same type of lock that is on these doors. So it's really quite secure. So if I know I'm going away for a few days, I will lock that door as well. Just because people who nick stuff, harder you can make it, the better. So that's important. I said, so housing quality. The space to be able to do things as a family and with friends is again really important, because again with my living situation, and space for Rowan to have his friends over as well. The fact it's on an estate I like, because there's a sort of sense of community in it as well. You see the same people walking their dogs and things, and there's two of Rowan's year mates at his school live in this same estate, and they'll all be going to the same secondary school as well. So even though I didn't know these mums prior to moving here, we now will do sort of favours for each other, or if one of them's walking their dog, we'll stop and catch up about what's going on at school. But yeah, it's the space to have that socialisation, I think, is really important for me, and for Rowan as well going forward, because I want a place where he can come and bring his friends after school, and it be a nice place as well.
And so you mentioned that you do feel secure in your neighborhood. Do you also feel you have privacy?
Yes. I mean, I'm overlooked by a house at the back, but that's like, I think, only 2 windows, and they're the upstairs windows. And generally, because that's a much bigger house, I also overlook their garden. It's... people don't tend to hang out in their upstairs quite so much. I said about the glass door there. So again, that's sort of less privacy than I'd like, but not, again, who's hanging out in their garage? Not really anyone. And then from the front, the only window there is my kitchen window. I'll get more of a idea how that will be once the next bit of the development opens up, because where Rowan goes to school now, he probably won't be going there when that's finished, but you will be able to get to the school by going down that way. So there'll be a lot more foot traffic then, and obviously my window's quite near to the path. But I don't, like, I walk everywhere. I'm not looking in people's windows, and I've had the builders sort of out there as well, and they're not. So, but in terms of privacy, like, I'm sat here in my lounge now, and yeah, it is very private, and that's nice, because again, with my own space and things, that my brothers didn't have it. But also people are close enough that if you need something, you can.
Okay. So you mentioned that you have perhaps enough room that will accommodate your lifestyle over many years. Do you feel that is the case?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the portion of this that I own outright, but I'm looking to buy more of the house, because unless something major happens, I don't envisage another move. Obviously, it depends what Rowan ends up doing in his life. That might change things. But yeah, I think this house, it's big enough to do what I want, but also small enough that I can do it, if you know what I mean. And that is important to me as well. I want to be independent here, and this house lets me do that. So yeah, it's not like I'm having to constantly go and fix things. I can keep on top of it. So obviously we're very new at the moment, so hope nothing's gone wrong yet. But as things do get older and do need replacing, it's not like coming to everything all at once. And as my life changes and Rowan's life changes, I can see me being able to manage that in this house.
And you kind of already touched upon it at the beginning, but how do you feel like your home impacts your health and your well-being?
Loads, absolutely. As I said, I'm still easing into it, but I do feel well here. And that's not to say I was feeling unwell before, but clearly I was walking around with a base level of stress that I hadn't appreciated, because it was just always there. Like, since moving here, not every night, but I've always been like an early bird. When I grew up, I always got up really early, and was at my best in the morning. And then for years now, it would be like, oh, don't want to get up, and I'd be staying up really late, just watching telly or whatever, even just on your phone. But sometimes I still stay up really late, but my body clock has switched to early. And even if I don't want to get up, I'll come downstairs, make myself a cup of coffee, go upstairs, and then listen to a podcast or something in the morning. And that is a massive change. And things like having a bath makes shaving your legs easier. Strange little things like that. And the sense of having, well, when I was talking to my colleague at work saying I hadn't appreciated, she said it's just having a home, and it's a lovely home, and it's all mine. Well, shared ownership, but it is mine, and it's huge. As I said, I'm still coming to terms with the fact that it is a bit huge, because it really is a bit. And like me with Rowan as well, because I'm less stressed about life in general, there's more of me to give to him. So when he's like, Mum, can you sit down and talk to me? I'm like, yes I can, even if it's just reading The Hobbit while you're in the bath, or going through his script or something. Yeah, massive.
That sounds great. Returning to the bit of shared ownership, do you feel your home is affordable?
Yes. There's things that, like, definitely in terms of rent, because as I said, I was able to buy my proportion of the property outright. So the way I was able to do that is I was living in my dead mum's home, but I've got 3 other siblings. One of those siblings needed to start claiming benefits as a result of the whole COVID thing. His wife sadly became very ill, and she still is with long COVID through that, so they needed to claim benefits. They couldn't claim benefits because of the proportion of the house he owned that he wasn't living in. So that house then needed to be sold. So it was at that point we sold that house. I moved in with my brother because I had nowhere else to go. But I did have this wodge of money. But now I don't have that wodge of money because it's in the house. I'm now entitled to universal credit, and so housing benefit pays my rent and service charge because it's as a proportion of the house, so I'm paying effectively for 3/4 of the house on an affordable rent basis as well. So I don't have the fear that housing benefit won't cover it, which you very much get in the private sector. I know that from knowing people who have to rent privately.
Was that arrangement kind of difficult to get to?
In what terms?
So you had mentioned when we came last week that because you had that amount of money, you didn't apply to getting that credit, and then it was kind of a...
Yeah, it was all because when I first applied to get the house, they phone you up and see if it's affordable. And to do that, you have to speak to a mortgage advisor. So, based upon so that will then look at whether you can pay any mortgage and the rent. At that time, I wasn't claiming universal credit because I couldn't, because I had the huge lump sum that I then put in to do this. And so, on paper, I couldn't afford a mortgage, but I don't need a mortgage because I'm going to be paying all that. But the process, that it's a box ticking exercise, and that wasn't easy at all. So, I couldn't get a mortgage, and then even before that actually, because I had an alert set up on my phone about when properties would come available. It was just like, check the property, and I was at work, and I checked it, and I was like, oh my god, there's some properties where I want to live. And I started filling out the form on the bus on the way home. It was a half day, I can remember that. And it wanted my passport number or something weird like that, something that I didn't have on me. And so I got off the bus, logged on the computer, nothing showing. They were like, they're gone. I was like, they can't have gone, they only came on just now. I saw them. And I phoned up and they said, oh yeah, we've had so many applications, we closed it. I was like, that has been open for 2 hours. I know it's been open for 2 hours. I cried. I cried at some lovely ladies from the Housing Association. And so that was another hill I had to climb. And I've really felt for people who, because if you think about it, whilst it's all been a bit of a stress and everything, actually I've been able to live with my brother. There's people who can't. I've been able to have this lump sum, and I've got that lump sum because I didn't have to rent privately. And had I been renting privately, that would have eaten into the lump sum and I couldn't have bought here. So yeah, that was hurdle number 1. Then hurdle number 2 was the affordability thing, which again, just through going on, it's like, no, you have to look at this again because this is the actual case. And that takes time itself. And I mean, I think I've probably aged about 50 years with all the stress that in itself caused, because I couldn't understand, because I know the criteria for these sorts of things, But if you think about it, I am on limited income. I am a single parent, because yes, Rowan is with his dad pretty much half the time, but I'm the one who is in charge of everything, and if he's sick and stuff, it's me that it all goes through. So single parent, local connections, yes, I'm literally living with family in the area where I want to buy. My son goes to school here, our doctors is here. I know I tick all the boxes, because it's to do with the borough council. My sister also lives in the same borough, so we are a very local family, and I just couldn't understand it. So the day that they phoned and let me know that I had it, I was just crying. It was such a relief. I'm getting a bit teary just thinking about it, because it was, it had been such a stretch. The stuff that had come before it, and then the process itself. But yeah, was hard, but it was completely, would have rather not had the stress, but if I'd had to go through all the stress again, that was the only way to do it again, yeah, I would.
I'm glad you got it in the end. Congrats. And
can I ask a question about this? I mean, it sounds like there's quite a high demand, right?
Massively. I think literally what happened is it was put on, and then they still had a big pile from the previous lot.
I see. So you were lucky because you already registered.
I hadn't already registered, but I think because of all those boxes I've just said I ticked, I was more of a priority than some other people, because there's people from out of area that will be trying to buy them. There aren't enough houses. There really aren't enough houses, and living where I do, it's a funny place, and I've lived, as I said, I've grown up here, I know, and there's a lot of overdevelopment, and yes, it is overdevelopment. The main road here, it's not built to put up with the numbers of houses. However, what I think, and I do say to people who moan about, we can't have more houses built here, do you want to see your grandchildren grow up? Because they're not going to be able to afford to live, or just live anywhere, because they're the big houses, which are very pricey, there's not enough of them either. And there's people having to move away because of what they can afford. And and the only way you can really afford is, like I did with this, is my mum died, and I was able to afford to put down a deposit. It's just not realistic for an awful lot of people.
yeah.
And so this is kind of a bit of a dream come true fairy tale story, despite all the other stuff.
Did wearing the tracker make you more aware of your routine? Did it change how you view the space?
I think a little bit. Particularly considering what I was saying about the hall earlier. I was surprised at how much time I sort of spent in the hall, because the tracker in the hall was very much at eye level, just by the kitchen and by the front door. I'd be like, oh, I'm here again. And yeah, because I mean, that's also by the front door, so you'll see periods of time when that's where the trackers were left when we went out. But I do spend a surprising amount of time in the hall for somebody who's just said, I'm not sure what I'm using that space for.
How important was owning it, or part owning it, or would it, I mean, for example, if you had really long-term rent security, would you think that would be the same? Or no?
Because I have had, I think I used the phrase turbulence, so without going into the whole thing, had Rowan, he's 10 now, so you can work that out, had Rowan moved from a part buy part rent ownership flat thing into a house with my ex, in quite quick succession after doing that, my mum died and my marriage broke up. And then I was living on a sofa in that house for a bit, because we were trying to sell my mum's property. Did sell it, it fell through, And my siblings just went, move into mum's, we can't have you just living on the sofa in that house anymore. And whilst I was there, it never felt like mine. It was always temporary, although we didn't know how long temporary was. And then clearly at my brother's, that's not viable. And so the fact I can say this is mine, so even if it was a long-term thing, like, I mean, I know with sort of housing association properties and council housing, you have got an element of security there. I'd still feel it could be taken away. And I know that as long as I pay the bills here and keep up with everything, this isn't going anywhere. And that, I think, that's a really pertinent question actually, because you asked about what it means to me, and I said about the wellness. Part of that comes from that.
Well, I'm glad it all worked out. So, yeah.